Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Maduro. Fake news is everywhere. It's in our social media feeds, it's in our newspapers and magazines, it's even influencing our politics. But how do you tell fake news from real news? Can you do it?
Well, I'd like to think so, but I've definitely believed stories that I ultimately found out were fake. It's just so hard to tell sometimes.
I really try. I do check where the story comes from and who has written it. I might get fooled sometimes, but all in all, I'm pretty good.
I am so gullible. I'm learning, but I used to believe everything I read, even on the internet. I've believed stories that could have been written by anyone.
It's becoming increasingly difficult to identify fake news. Today, we're talking to journalist and founder of fakenewsspotter.com, Alan Goodhue. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
You run a website called Fake News Spotter, but tell us, what is fake news?
It's important to point out that fake news is nothing new. In fact, I think it's uncontroversial to say that fake news is as old as news itself. In the past, newspapers frequently printed sensational stories. This type of journalism wasn't responsible reporting. In many cases, it was very irresponsible, but it was popular. The media has often been used as a propaganda tool too. Propaganda can make unacceptable stories acceptable, and although the stories are often fake, they're not illegal.
But if fake news has been around for so long, why are we all talking about it now?
In a word, technology. The internet and social media allow people to produce and consume news in a way that was unimaginable in the past. Whereas news used to only be reported by journalists, now anybody can create stories that look real. It's almost impossible to tell whether it's from a responsible reporter or someone more undesirable.
Is there any way to find out?
Yes, there is. You might not always be 100% sure, but there are questions you should always ask to separate the real from the fake. These are: how believable is it? This might seem too simple, but always ask how realistic the story itself is. If it seems unbelievable, that's probably because it isn't true. Who wrote it? Most of the time, though, you can't really tell whether an article is true just by the headline. That's when you need to look at the writer too. If there is no name, the writer might not be a journalist at all. If there is a name, check out the background. Do they look responsible, or is there other material unsatisfactory too? What is the evidence? If you've checked the writer and it's still hard to tell, you need to look at the evidence yourself. Is the source satisfactory? Always say to yourself, could this have been made up? And of course, facts and figures are always desirable.
That's a lot of hard work.
It is, but it's worth it. And it gets easier the more you do it. If you don't ask these questions, you may have already been fooled.
Which is what happened to a lot of people in an experiment you did recently.
You can say that again.
We'll talk more about that in part 2. Join us then.